Hey Channel Insiders, welcome back to Channel Insider Partner POV. I'm your host, Katie Bavoso. On today's episode, CEO of managed cloud services provider OTAVA, TJ Houske, makes his return to the series. This time with exciting news about OTAVA's newest partnership with Scale Computing. This partnership brings edge computing offerings to the OTAVA portfolio for the first time. TJ explains where he saw the demand for edge computing solutions and why Scale Computing was the right fit, as well as how this partnership has already led to an exclusive opportunity with one of the biggest names in data protection. TJ, welcome back. Great to see you again.
Hey, great to see you again, too. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming back on. Thanks for doing more cool stuff. That gives me a reason to bring you back on. So you win, I win. We're all happy about that.
That's right. Yeah. Good news is new news, right?
Exactly. New news is good news. I like that. So I gotta break right into it today because you guys have been really working hard over there at OTAVA, you guys and gals. So I want to let you talk to me about the new development that we've had within OTAVA, which is you have a brand new partner in Scale Computing. Talk to me about the impetus of this partnership and how did this come to be?
Yeah, no, it's great. I think the easiest way to say it is just like-minded people attract, right? So Jeff Reddy, co-founder and CEO of Scale Computing, is a great guy. We're both Indy residents, so we're here local in Naptown. We spend a lot of time together, and names tend to cross in the small circle city that we are. And we've been connected to Scale Computing through our parent company and participating in the investment side for Scale and their business. And so I've had early visibility over the years into where they're going, what they're doing, and then being able to track that against where the market's going. It just started to make more sense. The expansion, as you know, and you've talked a lot about with other partners, and AI and large language models and data at the edge and distributed computing, and the market is shifting. You're seeing companies like Scale Computing really start to thrive. And it's a natural tuck-in for where OTAVA is moving from centralization to now edge to cloud is really our focus to help. And so I think it's a combination of just really good people. That was the first one is, you don't want to get, in my opinion, you don't want to get into a partnership unless you're truly aligned in values first, and then strategy second. And I think both check the boxes. And so over the last year, Jeff and I have spent a lot of time together looking at this, saying how could we work together uniquely that's mutually beneficial and then makes a disruptive, positive impact to the market.
I'm going to see Jeff next month, and I do want to know when he sleeps, because over the last year, I don't think he's had a chance to. It's been such a huge experience and huge year for Scale Computing. So yeah, right. You let me know, because I imagine when you see him, I just imagine him being really excited and really, really sleep deprived. So
that's right. Yeah. We thrive on caffeine. That's for sure when we're together. So.
Channel runs on caffeine.
That's right.
And we run on a different kind of edge. We just got to get there.
Yeah, 100%.
So are you only partnering with Indiana-based and Great Lakes-based companies? No, I'm kidding. But I imagine you talk about the values and the culture fit. And, I don't think we talk enough about that in technology. So can you kind of ruminate on that a little bit more for me? Is when it comes to culture, what are you looking for from those partners, whether it be vendors or customers? What does culture mean to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, kind of pulling it apart a little bit, technology gets a bad rap sometimes. So what happens is it's kind of like, well, if you're socially incapable, right? If you can't hold a conversation, but you're really good with something that has an IP address, you belong in technology, right? That's good. And so we tend to not think about those things in terms of technology and business strategy. We tend to think first about technical application, use case, where the actual physical, transactional technology fits. But it really is just business. That's all that it is. And it's figuring out through people and relationships, what aligns well for what you're trying to accomplish. But specifically, culture for me, you have mission, vision, values, right? What are you trying to be as a company, whether it's now or when you grow up, however you want to think about that. And
that will never happen for me. I still haven't grown up. I'm still waiting for
Peter Pan, Peter Pan. I'm with you all the way through. I think I'm a Toys R Us kid forever, even though they're not around.
Outliving Toys R Us.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so for me, it really comes down to, a couple of basic things. One, can you have high integrity? Does the person that you're working with equally see the world through the same lens and view that you do, that it's integrity and character above all else? Second, do you follow through on the things that you say that you will do, and how, and how you conduct yourself? And then third is, are you really focused on making a positive impact in the market, or just focused on making money? And neither's really bad. You can go out there and make a difference by just making money, but it's quite different when you're looking at trying to solve problems with technology, and money's the byproduct of that, right? And so I think you're looking for good people, in my opinion, when you're looking at a strategic partnership, because it's not always going to go great. Everybody has a great vision for where they want to be, but it's the journey in the middle that's messy, that requires that you've aligned really well with your partner, so that when you have your low lows and your high highs, you don't get too high or too low. You can stay pretty neutral, balanced, and level-headed through it. So Jeff checks all those boxes, and his team. Scale's a great company, and it's been really fun to watch over the last decade and a half what they've done. And to your point earlier, it's nice to see them having the success that they've worked really hard for, and to hit their clip, and for us to be a part of that is really great, special.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. And so that gives me a little bit more confidence that Jeff has found ways to sleep and rest and all of that. So, well, let's talk more about what Scale Computing is bringing to the OTAVA portfolio. Sure. You already mentioned it, edge computing. We're seeing a greater demand for that. But why don't you talk to me about your experience and OTAVA's experience in seeing that demand grow? I'd really like to know Of course, I know you knew Jeff. I know you knew that edge computing has always been in the ether of what we do. But where did you see the demand, whether it be in 2023 or 2024, start to really lean where you said this needs to be a part of our business, or we're not going to continue forward? It's an all or nothing sort of situation.
Yeah, it's a great question. Really late, I would say fourth quarter 2022,
okay.
Started to see market shifting, and when where folks were going with data and data applications. You're seeing, it's not like artificial intelligence is new, right? It's been around for a very long time. But when you make a technology more readily available and usable at the everyday level, you start to see a greater level of adoption, right? So you look at the adoption curve and where we are relative to where we were just in 2022, now looking at 2025, and everything is different. The rate of technological evolution, the rate of release, the rate of adoption is way through the roof, right? So in late 22, early 23, started to look at it and say, okay, we can see the trend line and where it's going. By 24, we recognized very clearly, when we were looking at a combination of factors, one of them being Broadcom. We can talk a little bit about that, the big change. You and I mentioned that before. And then you start to look at generative AI plus Broadcom, and now you've got a couple of really big events that say, hey, people are rethinking now about what they're paying for, where they're putting their money, what they want to get out of that, because costs equally are going up at the same time that technology is changing, right? So they're kind of looking at the two. But if you look at market value and edge computing in 23 and 24 really finished out at about 11 billion in market value. By 2032, market value is about 113 billion is where edge computing will be. And at that same period of time, data protection is growing from a market value of about 43 billion today to about 3 or 4 times that, between 130 and 160 billion dollars. So the data is there showing you that people are moving closer to where data is being originated. They're innovating applications differently. And so what was largely sector specific, I think before, where manufacturing might benefit from it, right? Or multi-location retail might benefit from it. You're seeing adoption now at edge computing that is even in more traditional enterprise or centralized computing architectures. So it's pretty cool. That's, for me, what we saw for OTAVA was public cloud is shifting, right? You're seeing, again, that's just a different form of centralization, arguably at a higher cost, but there's a lot of flexibility there. And then private cloud, it keeps going at a steady clip. But we were looking for, what's that next thing that with our expertise in cloud and secure architecture design that we could marry together with a new solution that is really positive and disruptive. And we saw what Scale is doing and just believe, hey, they're leaders in the edge. And we think that's the right wagon to hitch ourselves to.
You said several things there that I have a follow-up question to, but let's start with, you brought up the B word, Broadcom, and knowing that VMware is a part of the Broadcom portfolio. And if you're just tuning in right now for the first time ever, that's not news. We've known about this for a long time. But as we know, VMware and Scale Computing are competitors in the virtualization space and beyond. You're still a Broadcom partner. Does this impact your relationship with Broadcom at all? And talk to me about how that goes from here. How do you partner with both of them?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? It's funny. Your question's the same as my board of directors.
Oh, good.
How do you think about this, strategically? And I think it comes down to understanding who you are, right? We OTAVA as a company and many of our peer groups in this space and channel, for example, and others, we're not manufacturing the software, right? So when you look at ownership, Broadcom is an owner, Microsoft is an owner, Scale is an owner, right? My job is to provide thought leadership, intelligence, insight, and value to the customers to say, hey, as you buy these technologies, be it software, hardware, the combination of both, how do you put them together in the right way? And how do we take our experience with not only other customers, but multiple industries and give you the right kind of advice? And so you could argue, you could go one of two ways. I've seen people that have doubled down and they've said, we're Broadcom only. That's just, who we are and how we do it. And I've seen other companies take strategies like ours where they diversify and they try to offer alternative hypervisor approaches. The direct answer to your question is I see it as complementary, right? So what we use in Broadcom, which is for private cloud and centralization, and even, in our multi-tenant model for multi-cloud, it's a great hypervisor. It's not like Broadcom and the technology is a bad technology, right? They're just going through a very different change in their approach, with it, and it's affecting the industry. But Scale is how we're using it is really solving a couple of very specific things that we could not solve in Broadcom. And that was one, lower costs. Let's just be honest, costs have gone up dramatically. That has been the big sticking point. That has been the heartburn, if you will, for many customers out there. It's like, hey, we're looking for these technologies at lower cost points because we can't sustain this, right? So that's one. The other one is customers were looking for something that was simpler. Like, hey, we know that we have access to all these advanced technologies and feature sets within Broadcom, for example, but what else can we access if we don't need all of those things? And so when you combine, we may not need all of those things with increased pricing. And really the value proposition in that moment right now is, well, you get all these things for this increased price. You're going to have to find different ways to complement the business and to help customers. And so we see it as complementary. I'm certain that Broadcom and others would understand. They have many partners out there that are reselling Microsoft Azure and Google at the same time as Broadcom. But our position hasn't changed. We're a top 400 partner with Broadcom, and we continue to be quite aggressive in sharing our private cloud product line, continue to grow in that product line. So we're hoping that this complements that quite well, and we can see, where it goes.
I do appreciate that you mentioning being a top 400 partner with Broadcom. And I don't necessarily think you'll have any comment on this thought that I have, but I think it does set the precedent in the market for these vendors when you see what your partners are doing because of customer demand based on things as simple as price. It really does matter, especially today. We'll talk about that more going forward too. Considering now, going back to the edge computing conversation, just for those who don't know, is Scale Computing your first edge computing vendor in the portfolio? Just talk to me about where that stands.
It is, yeah. Scale is our first and only. So to our comments, before about Broadcom, I'm no more interested in hedging against Scale than I am against hedging against Broadcom. The way in which you think about advancing product innovation is what complements the portfolio of products that solves for the problems that customers are sharing with you that they're running into. And so, who better to partner with than best in class and leader in the space, right? Hyperconverged infrastructure was, a name coined by Jeff, Alan Conboy, Scale Computing. Like, these are the guys that pioneered it. So I don't think you can get any better, when you look at that kind of a partnership. So yeah, they're best in class in our opinion. That's who we're exclusively aligned with. And then we have, and I know we'll get to it, but other strategic connections that really thread the two of us together uniquely. And so that reinforces the decision of, this is who I'm married to, as Jeff and I joke. So I'm sure our wives would comment on that, but
yeah, I'm waiting. I'm going to get that call once this episode drops.
I'm getting that call too.
And so with that in mind, would you say that this widens your customer base or deepens the relationship you have with existing customers, and why?
Yeah, I think both. We're fortunate that a great many of our customers have been with us for multiple 3-4 renewals and average contract cycles of 2 or 3 years, right? So we have great tenure, established with our customers. But we're also seeing that those customers are bringing new projects to us that are interesting that current technologies can't solve for. And we see that was part of that lead into, hey, Edge could solve some of this, give customers a different way to think about this or complement what they're currently buying from us. So that addresses the deepening of the current customers. I also think it's incredibly important as a reseller that you're showing thought leadership, you're showing continued innovation so that your customers can see like, oh, okay, you're growing and going. You're not just, collecting a check, for services that were, rendered, years past. But the other side of it is it does open up an entirely new addressable market, right? So today we centrally provide data center services hosted in one of our 13 locations, multinationally. This allows for us to get anywhere we want, right, to the customer and really make that impact wherever they are as opposed to where we are. And so I'm excited about that. I can't tell you yet as I look at the market, what we think is realistic from a penetration perspective. We're early as we start to evaluate that, but we're excited about what we see, and early indications are showing that the demand is there. So that'll be fun just to see new market, new customers, new conversations, new problems that come with it.
New problems, yeah, as long as you know.
Yeah.
You dropped the word solution earlier. Are you ready to talk about the solution that you're referring to when it comes to between OTAVA and scale computing? What is the brainchild, the love child, if you will, that has come from this partnership?
Credit to Jeff, right? He started the journey 14 and a half years ago. And one of the things that he was always in pursuit of was, if I'm going to build one of the leading technologies in hyperconverged infrastructure, and if I'm going to build, leading technology in edge architecture, then I want to partner with leaders that complement. And one of those leaders that he's always been interested in working with was a fast grower that everybody now knows, but maybe in the season didn't associate with enterprise class services. And that's Veeam. They have roughly a $15 billion market cap. But interestingly enough, if you rewind the clock on them even 10 years ago, Veeam is a very different company at that point in time, right? And so they've gone through their own massive growth journey, and you're watching Scale go through now its growth clip. And so what we saw between Jeff and I was, hey, OTAVA is a very large Veeam partner. We have a lot of thought leadership established in there, greater than probably a decade now, as leaders in architecting advanced data protection solutions. And maybe there's a way in which we, as an established Veeam partner, could help Scale get the attention that they've been trying to get with Veeam executive leadership. And so about a year ago, almost 15 months ago now, Jeff and I sat down here in Indianapolis, grabbed a bite to eat, and I said, hey, listen, I think there's a way that I can help and put us in the middle as a strategic distribution partner. We already have street credibility with Veeam. And so the risk is really unique in the sense that they're taking risk on organizing and prioritizing development to make Scale Hypervisor a priority, no different than Proxmox or Nutanix or OVH or VMware, Microsoft. But we think that we can garner that kind of attention. And so the credit goes to, one, Jeff being willing to say, hey, yeah, I want some help. I want a partner and somebody that, can work with. That's not easy. Some people can't do that, whether it's ego or insecurity. Jeff's not that guy. And so again, one more reason we align real well. And then the other credit goes out to a gentleman named Shiva. And Shiva is the general manager and senior vice president of North America for Veeam. And Shiva, he'll watch this, but he put his neck out on the line. And he said, hey, this might not be popular in Veeam, because in order to prioritize one thing, you have to deprioritize another. And again, Scale had been trying for quite a while. So between Shiva and his help, between me and then my team, Brian Hokelman, and many others, Austin Cook, Chris Borelski, and then Jeff and his team, Craig, and many others, we were able over the course of a year to put together a three-party agreement. And so OTAVA is now exclusively the strategic distribution partner for Veeam license resale from Veeam into Scale. And we are excited about that relationship over the next 10 years.
Oh my goodness. Congratulations. Yeah, how exciting.
Yeah, really excited.
Apparently, yeah. I heard you've already gotten some accolades from the Veeam side surrounding this. Can you share about those?
Yeah, we're excited. We just recently found out that we were awarded as Veeam's North America Partner of the Year. We're grateful. We went through a massive transformation through this journey and this partnership with Scale, and then became most recently a Platinum partner, which for those that don't know, that's top 16 partners in North America for Veeam services. And then amongst the whole ecosystem of partners, we're awarded top partner of the year in North America. So we're really proud of that. It's a testimony to the team and their hard work. And so I'm excited for them and for OTAVA.
Oh, wow. Congratulations to the entire OTAVA team. Everybody watching this, a round of applause for OTAVA. Awesome stuff. And I know that that's something you'll also be talking about as we go into Scale Computing Platform season in mid-May. So what is your goal? Is this your first time going?
No, this will be year 2 for me. I was there last year with Jeff. Yep.
Very nice, very nice. But how is it going to differ from last year for you now that this is all coming out, that you're going to be more of a central part of it this year?
Yeah, it'll be quite different. So I'm careful to never, and Jeff knows this about me, not overstate our value, right? This is about scale. This is about platform. This is about them. But as a strategic partner, we are excited to have a bigger role, both as a sponsor for the event itself, and then contribute in both the keynote announcement with Jeff for this partnership with Veeam, and now Scale being an approved hypervisor. And then equally have a handful of speaking slots that we're going to be talking to market trends and data, like where we're going and why this is so relevant. We're going to speak to our secure framework and some of the things that we do uniquely to enable the technologies that we're talking about. And I know Jeff has mentioned that his goal of platform over the years is to really migrate it to more of a technology education, like a great industry event that folks come not just learn about scale, but learn more about market trends and what's going out there. So companies like Mako Networks and Simply Nook and others are able to bring and add value. So it's great. I love it. And as you and I have said, if you haven't been to Platform, it's a great event. I highly encourage it. It's hosted by great people. They do a great job. It's in a great setting. So it's a lot of fun, and definitely no lack of sunshine. So that's always nice.
It makes you get out there. It's funny because you talk about, if you're an introverted person, you do really well in technology. Well, it's still, even if you're not introverted, you are spending a lot of time in front of the computer inside. So I feel like Las Vegas forces you to get a little bit more vitamin D out there.
Yeah, you get a lot of vitamin D and a whole lot of people watching. Yeah. So it's you get both. It is interesting space in the world.
My voice had barely recovered from channel partners the last time you and I spoke last year, which was also in Vegas. And so I'm already mentally and honestly physically preparing for another Vegas trip.
I needed a break. Last year I was in and out of Vegas for a quarter on and off. And I was like, we're going to take a little bit of a break here.
We need to decompress. No loud noises. I'm very overstimulated.
Excited to go back now, but I appreciated the rest.
Awesome. Yeah, you're ready. I get so excited in the edge computing conversation because I think that it's cool. And quite often we don't always talk about the cooler parts of technology in the channel. It's more so the things that are making just your day-to-day run and your business run. And that's not always that exciting. But even for just what we're discussing with edge computing, can you talk to me about, and I know you're still trying to figure out like where these solutions will be applied to, but where do you see your customers using edge computing right now, even in just the verticals that you're seeing this become an addressable market for you?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. I think obviously retail, multi-location retail, point of sale systems, and trying to keep data close to the edges is a home run, right? And and you've seen Scale do a fantastic job in there. You've seen other companies do that using Scale, reselling it in oil and gas, and targeting those areas. Where we see some pretty interesting things are your regional credit union providers. So when you look at regional financial institutions, they're in need of similar technologies for same regulatory requirements, but maybe not the exact same as a full-blown VMware Broadcom, right? So they're looking for fault tolerance, they're looking for high availability, they're looking for a hypervisor can do it, but they're also looking for a simpler cost of ownership and an easier technical management footprint. So that's one area for us. We've already had early conversations for that. Additionally, an interesting one, I had a meeting with an NFL team. And so sat down and talked to them about edge computing and about Scale specifically in their use case. And that is so that they can use that as they travel for sports, so that they can host their video on demand on the road, whether it's at training camps or whether it's at field game or travel games on their schedule and the like. And it's a smaller technology footprint for them to lift and take it with them, right? So those are some current use cases that are pretty interesting. And then within our healthcare sector, we have multi-location, roll-ups that are tied towards heavy. There's a lot of consolidation going on in areas like dentist groups, optometrists, where again, same demanding regulatory requirements with HIPAA and high trust, but similar in technical need, not same as a full healthcare system, right? And those tend to be multi-location in nature, traditionally don't have IT people out at each of those locations. They kind of have a centralized staff, and they're looking for how can we enable that staff to do more work with less people. And so I'm really excited about those because we have many of those customers already, and they've expressed that need of, hey, we want to keep working with you, but we're looking for how can we get more for the dollar that we're spending and do more with that application. So I think those are some near-term opportunities for us that we're very interested in, and we're going to be focused on marketing too.
You've brought up cost a couple of times, and I do have a question that I was waiting to get to, and I think now is the most important time to do that. As we're recording this, we've just been through an up and down situation in the federal government concerning tariffs. And not to get too deep into that, but just generally, I know it's been difficult for people to kind of plan their budgets out for 2025 and into 2026 because of conversations like that. Budgeting is always probably the worst part of figuring out what are we going to do over the next year for any business. How are you helping lead your customers through times of uncertainty like that, especially when we're talking about edge computing and cloud in general? You have people that they get really itchy to kind of want to drop something or figure something out by like finding a cheaper solution. How are you helping guide them in a way that is like, you can do this without blowing up your entire tech stack and trying to just not pay anything? How are you helping them guide that?
It's well said. Great question. The key is not blowing up their current tech stack. Right? No, it's a great question. I mean, head on, right? The tariffs are concerning, but I don't mean to minimize this. It's no less concerning than, what happens with inflation post-COVID, or what happens with, the financial crisis in the early 2000s, right? This is part of life. And I think that the most important thing that I try to bring from a leadership perspective to my customers and then to my employee base, and even in education when I talk across peer groups, the board and the like, is that if you're trying to solve your technology problems from a business perspective and it's entirely about cost, you usually fall short. 9 out of 10 times you're going to fall short because you're looking at it very one-dimensionally, which is how cheap can I get this, or at what budget number can I get to, instead of what business outcomes are you trying to solve and how does that connect to your multi-year strategy. And what I find is a lot of folks in the IT space, think about the organizational structure and design of companies. A lot of times you have IT folks that report up through like a finance vertical, or they report up through an operational vertical. Not everybody gets the benefit of a CIO or a CTO or somebody that is a strategic technical thinker. And if you look at the market that is consuming many services from the OTAVAs of the world, they tend to align with that. They're small business to mid-enterprise, where they're compressed in their organizational structure. And so my responsibility is to help them understand, like, are tariffs, an obstacle? Yes, for sure. You're going to see rising costs on the hardware side, particularly on imports. Companies like Cisco, Fortinet, Palo Alto, others have expressed, there may be rising costs there. Many of them have also expressed they don't know that they'll see rising costs on the software side, the continued expense side. So when you think about cost against capital versus cost against EBITDA and largely profitability, it's still a TBD, right? But what I'm trying to do, and I would encourage others to do at my level and across the board, is really talk about cost more holistically, not just the cost that you're getting from your vendor, but what is the cost of doing business in general? When you look at your headcount, when you look at your labor, you look at your software, you look at your real estate, you look at all these different things that you're doing, circuits, services, internet. Are you really looking at this holistically? Because I tend to find that even today, even with Broadcom, we had many customers that, their first partner that they talked to said, yeah, your costs are going to go up. They ended up saving money coming and working with OTAVA, but it's a very different conversation. It requires them to have a good business head on their shoulders. It requires them to move intentionally, but not necessarily fast. Speed isn't always success. And so that's really the approach I try to take. Is cost does matter, but I think it's more about the value that you get for that cost and having a more holistic approach.
Very well put. And I think that generally saying that is saying we cannot go into this looking at just the numbers. You have to decide what's going to be best for your company, because that ultimately is going to determine how much you can spend when all this is said and done, because you have to decide how much money you can make. Going on from there, TJ, you also talked about the secure framework. That was something we spoke about last year when we first got to meet on this podcast. I would really love to know how you're continuing to iterate on top of the secure framework, and how is your new vendor partner, Scale Computing, fitting into that?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you. It's fun. It's been actually really fun and rewarding to watch what started as a skunkworks project to internal to turn into something that's really revolutionized our business, and more importantly, the way in which we talk to customers and help them think about consuming technology. Right. So, as a quick recap, Secure Framework is our way of having a layered defense conversation and helping customers understand the OSI stack and thinking through layer 1 to layer 7. What does that look like, and what are the technologies technologies at each of those levels that I should be thinking about when I'm buying controls and protection. Because what we tend to find, and we all know this, right? There's a technology vendor for everything, whether it's intrusion prevention, intrusion detection, anti-malware, anti-ransomware, immutable storage. And, it's not just that your costs get crazy. It's really more about your administrative burden, like all these things that you have. And so Secure Framework is designed in such a way that allows you to methodically take a customer through that conversation and say, hey, what are you buying to solve for this section in defense and both offense, defense, in your technology stack? Now that's evolved. So it started as a framework for a consultative conversation, allowed for us to organize, quotes and presentations around that so that customers, as they go to buy their solution, have identified, okay, this is what I expressed my need was. You validated that, through this process and proposal, has now turned into us innovating and creating a secure score. And so when you log into our portal for customers consuming our technologies, we use the NIST framework to cross-map this to best practices. And so what happens is a customer can now, whether it's a technology from us or a technology from other, they can see where they score and rank relative to what their security posture should be versus what it is. And this forces customers to do the hard stuff, which is, it's great that you're backing up, but are you quarterly restoring those backups? It's great that you have DR. Are you running simulated DR or tabletop exercises? And so we've been able to connect it to a visual score that speaks more to your CFO, your CEO, to say, hey, here's your return on investment measured as in secure score against what we propose to you, which would be buying criteria, why you should buy these things and make these investments. So it's coming together really nicely. We've received a lot of really great feedback on it. We love that we're able to add visualization to what feels often like nebulous theory with technology. So something tangible is always good for the finance side of business.
Yeah. Gamification, visualization, anything that makes people want to check it. When you say score, they're like, a score, you say. You're grading me on this.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we all want to be entertained, right? So
yeah, entertained and winners. We want to win the tabletop games for sure.
Right.
As you have that conversation more and more with your customers, is it becoming easier on the security side? Are you seeing people take it more seriously in 2025?
Yeah, it is, right? And I think the reality is most customers have now accepted the if versus when. It's not if I'm going to get ransomware, it's when, and am I properly prepared to protect myself through that process? Have I put together all the right policies, the procedures, the insurance protection and coverage, the technology itself to help create defense or offense in that moment, incident response, right? All those pieces that flow together. So the conversation it's easier in the sense that customers are not numb to it. They're pretty receptive. Like they understand it's real. And before, and I don't mean to minimize it, but I think even just a short 10 years ago, many people looked at ransomware and they're like, well, that's not going to happen to me. Right? Like that happens, but it didn't happen to me. They're going after the bigger companies. And now 10 years later, especially with artificial intelligence and the tools that make it easier for people to do this on a proactive basis, even with less skill, they can still be as effective, if not more so. Businesses are looking at this going, this is an issue. And we really welcome this kind of a conversation. So, we find it's been great. It's been receptive. Again, I think probably the greatest outcome from it is it's a consistent conversation. Mm-hmm. And so regardless of industry, if you can have the Chick-fil-A approach, if you will, that you get the same experience, the same conversation, whether you're healthcare, whether you're finance, whether you're private sector, education. I think that's really what this is about is, keeping this simple and repeatable. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing rewarding wise that's come out of this for us and for customers.
Oh, for sure. I think to your point about that conversation of it's the same across industries, it's the same across verticals. Even if you're talking to a level of business that may not have a complete comprehension of what data is, or what their private data means if it gets out, everybody understands do you like your money? Do you want to keep that money? Yeah?
That's right.
Do this. So it's a very good point there in talking about that conversation. Going on from there and just looking forward to the rest of the year. We're in Q2 now. What's next for OTAVA as we get deeper into 2025? And of course, how can customers take advantage of all the new cool stuff you have going on with scale computing and Veeam?
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm incredibly excited for the rest of the year. So at a high level, major milestones are the platform event coming out of platform and allowing for customers to visit otava.com and to start doing opportunity registration, not only for edge computing direct from OTAVA vis-a-vis scale, but also being able to pre-register. Maybe they're already a Scale customer or they're already a Veeam customer, one or the other, and they're saying, hey, now you're going to have the ability to put both of these solutions together. They'll be able to pre-register through our website at otava.com to start doing that, talk to our solution architects or our sales executives to start thinking about that. So that's a big milestone for us here in May, June. Excited about that. And then we look forward to the fall where Veeam is finishing first version for the development and approval for the integration. And then you go from, demand registration over the summer into implementation and start helping customers, adopt this new option for them. So it'll be a very busy year. It already has been. I feel like it should be December already. So it's been intense,
Sorry.
as you know, right? Jeff and I joke, we're like, okay, this is going to be an interesting year. So we've got quite a bit of early demand already starting, but that's our focus, is to really shore up post-platform, helping folks get connected to what we're getting them excited about, how to consume that, and then connect the dots and implement all of that as we get into the fall.
And considering that Veeam integration, for the customers that are listening and they want to explore that, how can they know if they're a good fit for it? Or is it widespread? Is it something anybody can take advantage of? What should they look for?
Yeah, it's really anybody, right? I mean, you think about it today, one of Scale's partners for backup protection or data protection is Acronis, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you look at, again, earlier to the market size and the customer consumption of Veeam, it's large, right? It's quite significant. And so there's many more Veeam customers than there are Scale customers. But there's going to be many customers out there that are currently Veeam that maybe have looked at something like Scale and maybe a year ago or 18 months said, we love it, but it's just not an option for us because we have petabytes of data. And in order for us to be able to switch the hypervisor side based on what we need, we cannot give up our data protection strategy. And now they don't have to, right? And so I think this opens up the door really for multiple conversations. In one camp is Veeam customers that might be looking for an edge play or an alternative hypervisor. Now they can have that conversation with Scale Computing through OTAVA, or obviously the broader Scale ecosystem of partners that enables those partners as well to be able to talk about Veeam with their customers, which is really exciting. And then I think there's those customers as well that might be consuming a competitive product like Acronis or another backup provider. It could be Cobalt. And they're looking at, hey, we want the edge play. And, for us, that edge play is going to come with Veeam. And so it's a double win. They get the benefit of the leader in edge computing and they get the leader in data protection. So it's going to be interesting. I think the demand is understated relative to what the market is doing. I know Jeff feels the same way. And then we've got good data points that show us, particularly from a perspective of Scale, looking out at the market, how many customers have been saying, like, we'd love to come over, but Veeam is a really critical path to our success. So I don't think there's better timing and a better marriage between the three groups. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
So now you're going to be the one not sleeping very much, and I'm going to have to check up on you now too.
Let's go with that. That's how you and I see each other next time. We'll be having like a pitcher of coffee while we're sitting here. So.
Don't worry, I'll bring plenty of concealer and powder to platform just in case you need it.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Well, TJ, thank you so much for your time today. And for those who are listening and want to reach out and learn more about OTAVA, where can they go?
So check us out at otava.com. I know that sounds simple, right? Go to the website.
It's meant to be simple.
Right? But it's meant to be simple. Check us out at otava.com. You can engage directly there with all sides of the business, including me. But really excited. I want to give a shout out to the marketing department. On May 1st, we are launching a new version of our website, and they have put a lot of time and effort into this asset, and really excited about what it's going to do to help customers, understand the information that we're putting out there, but how it connects to their needs. So the timing couldn't be better to say, go to otava.com. You're going to get to see a lot of really great things there, whether it's media content, copy content, and more. Schedule some time to speak with anybody. That would be great. And then if you're at Platform, come and talk to me or anybody else there and say, hey, saw this and would love to hang out and learn a little bit more. So Platform will be a lot of fun.
TJ, thank you so much. This has been such a fun time to get to talk to you and learn more about, continue to learn more about OTAVA as we go through the rest of the year. I also know, I'm looking at the sign behind you, I think it was you that brought back another season of Ted Lasso in the near future. So I have you to thank for that.
I tried to will it through.
It worked.
I've been Ted Lasso since the pilot when COVID hit, and I'm like, I got nothing to do. And then I turned on this British comedy and went, oh my God, my life will never be the same. This is amazing, right? And some days I feel more like Ted, and then there's other days that I feel more like Roy. But nonetheless, it's still just as fun. So
I'm either a Keeley or a Roy myself. You never know. Depends on the day.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to spend time with you and see you at Platform, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
I agree. Thanks so much to TJ for joining me once again, and thank you for watching or listening. You can check out every episode of Channel Insider Partner POV on channelinsider.com or watch us on YouTube at youtube.com/channelinsider_news and trends. You can also listen to us as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow wherever possible so you never miss an episode. Come connect with Channel Insider on X or LinkedIn, or with me, Katie Bavoso. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Bavoso, and I'll see you next time.